Berserk is my favorite series of all time. The manga is filled with beautiful artwork, characters that are so interesting and complex that you can't help but immerse yourself in each of their personal journeys. The world itself has its own intricacies, from how it starts off as this really normal place, with war between nations happening, and then later on for it to become even bigger with dragons, giants, and a lot of other fantasy creatures you can think of while reading the story. But we're not talking about that today. If you want, you could check out these videos because I think they do a great job in explaining why the Berserk manga is just amazing. As for me, I'm going to be exploring how the anime goes from being okay to whatever this is. So if you want, go grab something to eat, maybe also grab a bev and sit back and relax as I explore the 3 adaptations of Berserk. Berserk 1997 is the first attempt of adapting the Berserk series, and many people like this one. And at first, I thought the same, since this was the anime that introduced me to the Berserk series 5 years ago. But that's until I got my hands on the beautiful manga, which destroyed my impressions of the anime being this masterpiece in the anime medium to just being an okay adaptation of its source material. The thing about the 1997 Berserk series is that it has a lot of flaws, and by flaws I mean from animation to cut content to major characters not showing up who are actually relevant to the plot of the story. For example, take the first episode of the anime, and when comparing it to the first portion of the Black Swordsman arc, it almost gets it right, but if you notice, there's no Puck. Guts' introduction with the female demon completely scrapped from the first episode. Now yes, it's true that they had to cut moments like these to have it fit the 25 episode limit they were going for, but after reading the manga, you can't help but notice those minor cuts, which can be really annoying on rewatch like it did for me, because if there's something that the 97 anime absolutely nails is the atmosphere of the manga, and to see the entire Black Swordsman arc never fully animated or vital parts of Guts' backstory animated is really disappointing, and things get ever so slightly worse when it comes to its animation. Berserk's action is some of the best you'll see in manga, from how detailed and violent it can be, to Miura's attention to detail with eyes and guts flying everywhere, which gives it that brutality that Berserk is known for. But the 97 anime doesn't really do that. The action is straight up okay to mediocre, and part of the problem of trying to animate everything in 25 episodes. And when you top that with pages ripped straight from the manga and add watercolors to it, which can look really beautiful to look at, but it can be very boring when you include it into your action heavy scenes, with some exceptions here and there. And while we will never get a one-to-one when it comes to Miura's art, that's just simply impossible, I wish there was some kind of an attempt to have at least some scenes show the gore and violence that happens in Berserk in a way that was more fluid and more interesting to look at, instead of having a slideshow for the 100th time. But that'll never happen since they basically left us with a cliffhanger on episode 25, and with the studio who made Pokemon never picking up where they left off, causing for the next Berserk adaptation to finally show up 15 years later. And I got a lot to say about this one, a lot. I'll say it straight up, and I think a lot of people agree, these Berserk movies, they fucking suck ass. The Berserk movies were this weird amalgamation of 2D and 3D, but it was at least watchable, unlike this garbage over here. And I'll get to that one later, but for now let's stick with the Berserk movies. The Berserk movies were released from 2012 to 2013 and covered the Golden Age arc again, in the span of 3 movies, and I really disliked them. When I first watched these movies, I knew that they were gonna leave stuff out, because, well, it's a movie. It would be impossible to cover everything that the manga did during the arc. My problem doesn't really lie with that. My problem is that these movies suck out the heart and soul when it comes to portraying Berserk's story. Guts' backstory is literally reduced to shaky camera flashbacks. Like, look at this and tell me if you understand what's even happening. I'll go ahead and say it right now, the one thing that the movies have over the 97 anime is how fluid it can be in portraying the battles that happen in Berserk. Some are really good, but because they use CGI and it's not used properly, we get shitty animations that look like this. And I also can't help but feel even more angry when seeing the beautiful 2D artwork they got going in a lot of scenes. And even though the third one may look the best, it still has the problems of characters having no emotion whatsoever when it comes to reacting to certain events. Like the whole entire scene with Casca and Guts confessing their feelings to one another and accepting their brokenness is completely butchered. They didn't even attempt to at least show some scenes from the manga to make these scenes more impactful. It's just, oh, I hate you because of Griffith. Oh, I think I like you now, let's fuck. And it's the most dry sex scene I've ever seen. It's just Guts going The score to the movies are really good. My Brother, amazing song. The opening sequence aria, incredible. Guts and God Hand, masterpiece. But in some scenes, the music choices they chose just felt off or didn't fit with the scene. For example, the whole scene where Griffith transforms into Femto and violates Casca, they used this fast piano sound, but it just made the scene feel so empty in my opinion. And granted, what he does isn't supposed to entertain you, but they just should have left out the music or bring out the old Behalit track. And that track worked so well back then because majority of the moments when Griffith transforms, there's no sound whatsoever. And since there's a lack of sound, there was so much tension built up for this moment, only for the music to finally creep in and all sounds of what's happening is drowned out by this otherworldly music which fit the scene, so that the moment Guts screams, you're left with your jaw dropped on the floor. Now I'm gonna give credit where credit's due. The movies are more manga accurate with what happened, but when it comes to music and when to introduce those soundtracks, I gotta give it to 97 because it really gave that extra oomph to Berserk's story. And it's kinda sad because with the 1997 anime, it wasn't terrible, but it wasn't great either. And you would think maybe they would do something slightly better than the 97 anime, since it was a step in the right direction to actually making a great Berserk anime, but instead made it even worse because they made it into movies, which cuts the story itself in half, and with the introduction of CGI, which isn't even that good. And you can imagine, when I found out that there was a 2016 version of the anime, I remember looking at this very poster and thinking, maybe it was done justice. Maybe Berserk can finally have the anime it deserves, so people can enjoy the story in animation format. But guess what? I was wrong. It got worse. So by this point, I remember I was caught up to the manga, I've seen the 97 anime, watched the movies, and had no idea that there was a 2016 anime for Berserk. And since I caught up to Berserk in 2017, the anime already had its second season almost done. It was like only 6 episodes in at the time. So I told myself, hey, let's watch Berserk 2016 and see what's all about. And I went in with high hopes. I went in there with the happiest look on my face, thinking this was gonna be good. And oh boy, I was fucking wrong.
You demented kindling! It's time for you to die!
Berserk 2016 is bad. Like really bad. From the first episode, whether you read the manga or not, you can tell this is gonna suck. When the Holy Iron Chain Knights are shown on screen, it's not that bad at first, but that's quickly destroyed the moment Guts pops on the screen and is walking towards you in the most awkward way. And then you know it's gonna be bad. I will say this, the openings for each season really slaps. The soundtrack is surprisingly better than the movies. Now the first episode of this Berserk adaptation is a mix of the Black Swordsman arc and the Lost Children chapters, and it just doesn't work. It just doesn't. They literally put Isidro in the Black Swordsman arc when he doesn't appear until after the Black Swordsman arc and Lost Children, which just blew my mind on like how they messed up with the continuity when Berserk's continuity is the easiest thing to follow. The fight that Guts has in the tavern is a disaster because it feels like something from the early 2000s. It had rock music which just didn't fit with the scene, and that's something that happens a lot in this show, just like the movies. And things get even worse because they tease Lost Children and skip over the entire thing, and while watching this for this video, I just checked out. I couldn't do it anymore, so I was like just pushing through it just to make sure I at least got everything. And I will say the anime after the first 2 episodes starts to follow the story very closely, but the quality of the animation just wasn't there, so it still made it hard to watch. But I think the part where I actually had mixed feelings about this anime, and it was only for a moment, was when Guts finally gets the Berserker armor. I think the reveal and astral plane in the background was really cool, but the animation of the actual fight was really butt. Guts just looked so stiff fighting against Grunbild, it was disappointing. But also amazing seeing the Berserker armor animated for the first time. And if you want to see the Berserker armor in a way that actually looks cool and has really good animation, just play Berserk Musuo. Now that game itself isn't anything special, but its cutscenes are better than Berserk 2016. I mean, a PS2 game from 2004 is better than this adaptation altogether. And I'm not lying. Watch this and then look at Berserk PS2 game, exactly my point. Now, I don't want to sound like an asshole, even though I do, but that doesn't matter because I know the staff that made 2016 really worked hard and tried their best with whatever they were working with, but the outcome is just disappointing, and I wonder if they thought the same while making this. But that's it. That's my little video of why I think the Berserk anime adaptations suck and why 97 is okay. And out of the three, at least tries to reach the heart and soul that makes Berserk special. But I think we can all agree these two are just garbage and they shouldn't exist. Thanks for watching, and I'm just gonna say it now, this whole video is just one big joke. I've wanted to make this video for a while now and finally did it. Expect a video on banana fish next week, but yeah, talk to you guys in that video. Peace.